There we go. Pedro! Will I ever know who you are, Pedro? Gonna set my phone up. Can y'all hear me okay? Hello! You're just a fan, Love you, Pedro. Hi, Karen. Yay! Is that Angela? Hi, Angela. Oh, so excited, you guys. I'm a little nervous. We'll wait a couple of more minutes, so yay. Oh, I see your picture now, Angela. Yay, there you are. Aw, thank you, Karen. You're so sweet. Thank you, Angela. We'll wait a couple more minutes because I said 6:30, so I just wanted to get on because I always like flip it wrong and all that. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm not using a microphone. Let's see here. Sounds good. Okay, good. Thank you, Pedro. And thank you for all the hearts. You rock. Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Good. How's everybody doing? I am, I can't believe, I may get my books by the end of this week. I won't be launching them until the 12th and shipping them out until the 18th, but I am like totally excited. I can't believe it's coming out, and I'm slightly freaked out, slightly nervous, but it'll be good. And when we hit it's 6:30, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So, but I wanted to say a couple of things. So, ready for jam? I agree. I'm ready for jammies too. I wanted to say a couple of things. So, Cherished Revised is coming out very soon. I first launched it, gosh, I think it was 2013, which is insane to think that it was 3 years ago. And it was. It's done amazingly well. I've sold over 2,000 copies and just gotten it to the hands of people all over the country, and just I think it's impacted some people, and I've had the opportunity to revise it, and I did a pilot group. Had a precious woman, Jamie Mullins from Cross Timbers, and she encouraged me to help revise it. And so started, hi Amy, and started, let's see here. So she started, I started doing pilot groups. And the reason why I did the pilot groups is because I wanted to add a study guide to the book. So behind each chapter is a study guide, and they're journal prompts, and you get 3 journal prompts. It's the what was, the what is, and what is to come. And the design of this and the layout of it is that by the time you have finished the Cherished book, you will have the foundations of your own cherished story. And I so deeply believe that each of us have a very powerful, impactful story. And so, I've talked to so many women and men who are like, I want to write my story, I just don't know how to do it. And so that is what this book is all about. And so, also, if you want to do a small group, it's also designed for that. The journal prompts are not necessarily for small groups, but in the back of the book are cherished conversations. And there are 5 questions per chapter, and they're perfect for a small group setting. And those are the questions that you ask per chapter. So I do small group pricing, and you can buy 10 books, you can buy 1,000 books, just buy them all. So anyway, let's see here. I'm going to say one more thing. April 12th, I've had the opportunity, I've been invited to help to speak at Simplicity. It's a girls' night out. It's at Cross Timbers in Argyle, Texas. And I'll also be speaking first at the Cross Timbers in Denton on the 12th. And then I'll be driving to Argyle to close out that night. And I'll be that starts at 6:30, and there'll be praise and worship, and then I'll be sharing a word, and I'll be launching my book there. Cross Timbers has been such a huge support for the revision of my book, and so everybody's invited. So please invite all of your friends and buy a few copies. I'll be signing books, and I'd love to see you and take pictures with you and give you hugs and smooches and all of that. So this book is my testimony, and it is it starts in a very hard place where I was on suicide watch, and I had been a stripper starting in college, and I am almost every single statistic that put me in the sex industry, starting to be abused at the age of 3, excuse me, when I first wrote the first revision. I only had revelation of abuse starting at 7. And then after the book had been written, I had revelation that I had started being abused at age 3. And so with that, this story came about. And this book is about a story of redemption. It's about not just the horrible stories of abuse and things like that, but it is about coming out of it. And the Lord showed me a beautiful picture. I love collecting sea glass. And if anybody knows what that is, it's glass that gets broken in the ocean, and it comes out. Yes, he is very faithful. And it comes out beautifully opaque and soft, and no more sharp edges. And he gave me a beautiful picture of this, and to write a parable. And I love parables. I love how Jesus uses parables to teach us, to show us, to see in a different way, to challenge our minds and our hearts in a whole nother way. And so he gave me this picture of sea glass. So that's what I'm going to read tonight, and I'm really excited. So I'm going to start. And this is chapter 3 in Cherished Revised, and it's called Sea Glass. When I do pauses, a long pause, there are some separations in the story that are switching characters. So you'll hear it as the story goes, but just to prepare you for that. So, sea glass. Shattered into 1,000 pieces, she knew she would never be the same again. Razor-sharp edges replaced the smooth lines of the jar, and jagged peaks stuck up from the pits in the sand like needles, slicing the feet of the unaware and the hands of those who dare to try and hold it. Pieces lay scattered on the beach. The creator's original design now indiscernible. Dashed against the rocks, the sand rubbing, clouding the colors and wearing down the shine. Shattered, broken, useless. In the beginning, the gaffer, glassblower, took a handful of clean and refined sand. He sifted it through his hands and studied it closely to make sure every grain was perfect, and that it was just the exact amount to create the perfect jar. He dreamed of what he would create and smiled at the thought of the beauty and the value this jar would bring him. He wanted a jar, but not just a plain jar, a special jar that would hold his prized possessions. She would hold exactly what represented him and his passions, talents, and desires. Sand is formed into glass by melting the natural raw materials together inside a crucible, a large ceramic pot that rests inside a furnace. The heat must stay consistent at a blazing 3,000 degrees. The gaffer blows into the end of a 6-foot steel blowpipe to create a bubble in the red-hot glass. Carefully, he pulls out the ball and takes it to his bench, where he rests the pole. While it is cooling, he twirls the pole back and forth, watching the glass bubble grow. He is careful not to let it get too cool, which would cause the piece to crack in its fragile state. He moves it carefully back into the crucible to the heat into a moldable temperature again. This time, when he moves it back to his bench, another helper blows on the other end to fill it with the air and create a large space inside, forming a beautiful shape. Proper heat must be maintained to keep the piece from fracturing. So the gaffer reheats the piece a second time, called the glory hole, as needed. Very focused and purposeful, he goes back and forth to the glory hole to heat up and mold the glass into the very shape he desires. He knows that due to the molten glass having a consistency similar to honey, it is crucial that the blowpipe is rotated continuously throughout the entire process. He is in awe as he sees her taking shape. Simply starting with grains of sand and fire, he watches as this unique piece takes form before his eyes. With the pole back on the rack, he continues twirling with his left hand. As he takes in his right hand another pole with a hot glob of glass on the end, to which he has added aqua blue, the color of the ocean. As he spins her, he twirls the blue to create a swirl around her whole shape. He presses the blue into her with a metal tool and then places her back into the furnace. He repeats this process using a darker blue like the sky. Hours have gone by, but he does not tire. He knows that soon he will hold the beautiful creation in his hands. He is so close to the finish. Still continually twirling the pole back and forth, he takes the pliers, presses them into the end of the piece, and opens them up to create a hole that will become the mouth of the jar. The jar is cool enough now to see the shape of the piece and how all the colors have come together. The assistant comes with very thick gloves holding them under the jar as the creator clips the piece at the tip of the pole. The piece is moved to a third oven that stays heated to 900 degrees to let it cool slowly so it doesn't crack or weaken from cooling too quickly. He can't contain his delight when he finally gets to retrieve his piece out of the cooling oven. He holds her up to the light and twirls her back and forth, letting her uniqueness and beauty shine. "I am well pleased," he says. She is his favorite, the most prized possession he has ever created in his glass studio. He created her with purpose and value and worth. His plans for her is to contain the very things he uses to create other beautiful pieces. She holds his paintbrushes and his charcoal pencils, and sometimes the creator drops small seashells into her that he finds on his lingering walks along the beach. In her are the things that he values the most. The artist loves and cherishes his glass jar. She is his treasure, his creation. This jar knew she was beautiful. Her creator, the artist, loved her, and she remembered being just grains of sand. Her heart fluttered when she thought of the intense fire, heat, and breath it took to fashion her into a liquid to be molded into the perfect jar just for him. Her favorite memory was of him adding dynamic colors to her glass, creating strands of aquamarine blues and greens. She was so red from being in the fire that only when she began to cool did she get to see the true vibrancy of her colors. Colors like the ocean and sky outside the window. She knew she was special by the way he handled her from the very beginning. He picked her up and held her to the light to examine his work, turning her from side to side. She remembered his smile and chuckle as he said to her, "I am very well pleased." He was careful the first time he set her down on his drawing table. The table faced a large white worn panel window looking out over the frothy sea, and he put her right where the sunlight would shine through in the mornings, so she would catch the reflection of the sun and cast colors on the walls. She loved that she could do that. It was her way to create beauty for him. He put his most prized possessions in her, the very same pieces he used to create other pieces of beauty. It was his character, passions, and reflections of himself that she would hold just for him. Her favorite things to hold were the seashells. She longed to go outside with him and would watch him as he took his canvas bag out on the rocky pier to draw. She could sense that it was dangerous out there, but had no fear. because she knew he would always take good care of her, always protect her. One beautiful sunny day, as she cast her colors on the wall, she watched her creator on the pier sketching beautiful pieces he would soon create. She delighted in watching his face shine as he would make whisks and circles with his charcoal pencil. He never made a mistake, so an eraser was never part of his supplies. But this day was different. She felt a cold breeze that made her uneasy. As she looked away from her creator, she saw a dark shadow come into the room. Immediately, she felt foreign, cold hands on her as she was taken from the table and pulled quickly outside. Her heart pounded, and she began to feel something she had never felt in the presence of her creator: fear. It threatened to consume her. All she had ever known was light, and now she was surrounded by darkness, even though the sun still shone. The stranger was rough and careless. He was jealous of her. He knew his purpose, which was to steal, kill, and destroy anything the Creator made. He hated the Creator. He lifted up the beautiful, delicate glass and scoffed at her. You are nothing but a piece of junk. You are worthless. You weren't created with any purpose but to hold his stuff. He just wants to use you. For some reason, she started to believe him. He carried her carelessly to his house. He tossed her in the air, acting like he wasn't going to catch her, but at the last minute, he would reach out and grab her. He did this several times, making her feel sick and dizzy. When he got to his home, he slammed her down on his table, putting a fracture into her beautiful frame. He heard the crack and picked her up, looked at it, and scoffed again. Not so pretty now, huh? She wept. The house was dark. She had never experienced darkness like this before. In her other home, even at night, she could see the brilliant stars sparkle or feel the peace of the full moon shine on her. When there were storms, the Creator always had his light on, and that filled her with peace while pushing out any fear of harm that might come her way. The darkness was all-consuming. There was no peace here, only calamity. Love did not dwell here, only hate. Instead of being filled with beautiful creative pieces, like pencils and paintbrushes, the stranger was filling her with heavy rocks and knives. For several years now, she had endured this dark place and watched the room fill with other pieces stolen from the Creator. He would smash them against the wall, watching them shatter into 1,000 pieces. Some of the other glasses or jars would be set right next to her on a shelf, and they would say horrible things to her. They would speak words of hate and shame and fear over her. They hated her for her beauty. She couldn't understand this because they were just as beautiful as she was. They were created by the same artist. She vowed, I will never trust anyone again. One gloomy winter day, the terrifying man picked her up and tossed her into the air, saying, Today is your day. I've hated you since the day you were born. Once I'm done with you, I will never have to look at you again. And he caught her clumsily. He stomped out the door and ran down the stairs to the beach. The winter sea was angry and dark. Swirling storm clouds had gathered. He jumped up onto the rocky pier, right where she knew her artist would paint and sketch the sea. As she looked around, she realized why he had never brought her out here. The rocks were jutted and uneven, creating treacherous ledges and crevices. The ocean churned below her, crashing against the dark rocks. The man carrying her hopped from one rock to another, declaring how powerful he was and how no one could touch him, even the artist that created the stunning pieces he was so drawn to destroy. He finally came to the end of the pier and looked down at the glass jar, lovely still, even with a visible crack. Staring at her with hate one last time, he cocked his arm back and hurled her as far into the ocean as possible, yelling, I hate you! She went soaring through the air, out over the angry sea, and hit the water with such force that the crack gave way and she splintered into multiple jagged pieces. She screamed in pain as she felt herself shatter. The agony was overwhelming. As each part of her sank quickly to the bottom of the powerful sea, she vowed, "I will never be loved again." Each piece of her hit the sand and immediately started tumbling with the surging waves that washed in and out from the shoreline. The sand hurt so badly as it abrasively rubbed against her sharp edges. She wished she could just be one whole beautiful jar again, but all she could feel were her harsh edges. One afternoon, a piece of her tumbled up onto the sand, and the hope of being found welled up in her. A woman jogging along the beach tried to pick her up, but her edges were so sharp that she cut the woman, drawing blood from her hand. Hurt and enraged, the woman threw her back into the rolling sea. The thought of ever being cared for again began to fade. Every once in a while, as the pieces of her tumbled over and again through the swells and sand, she would remember the days when she would sit in the table and listen to the artist talk to her, describing her beauty. He would say in his heartfelt voice, "My cherished one, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I know this full well." Remembering his words made her cry. She wanted so badly to be what she was created to be, but she believed she could never be the same after being used and broken. She was too damaged for him. He would never take her back anyway. The sea had consumed her, and she was far too gone. On days where the pain of the sand rubbing against her was too much, she would remember his promise. "I came so that you may have life, and life abundantly." He also would say, "Now remember, cherished one, you know that in all things I work for the good of those who love me, who have been called according to my purpose." She recalled him saying, "Cherished one, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Sometimes her heart would harden so much that she couldn't stand to think of the one who made her. "If he loved me so much, how could he have ever let me be taken? He didn't truly love me like he said he did." But every time she said that, her shattered self would look up near the rocky pier and see a shadow that looked just like the artist. Her heart would pound for a moment, and she was almost positive she could hear his voice through the waves. "I will perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you." She struggled with herself, going back and forth in her mind and heart between the one who created her and the one who tried to destroy her. Sometimes the only voice she could hear was the man that had shattered her beauty inside and out. But after many years of rolling in the ocean and being painfully refined by each grain of sand and salty wave of the sea, her hardened heart began to soften. Every once in a while, a piece of her would wash up on the shore. The artist would find it and delight and pick her up and know that this was his precious, beautiful jar. He knew that all of her was out there somewhere, but he was delighted in the fact that even though he had just a small piece of her, eventually all of her would return to him. Cherished one, like a piece of sea glass, you are exquisite. Yes, there are places where you have been rubbed raw with edges that no longer seem to fit in the original design. Bright colors have become muted and scratched, losing some of their vibrancy. And you can see the places where the ocean has marred the glass. You can't see beauty anymore. But he can, the creator, the artist, the one who took the time and energy to create you, the one who wept as you were being smashed and broken on the rocks, the one who longed for you to come back, to be home, to be safe and protected in his hands again. He sees your beauty because he knows he created you to be. Nothing can diminish that value in his eyes. Sea glass is only beautiful to those of us who truly understand how it got that way. It's not a thing to be discarded because it's no longer useful. Instead, it's a thing to be appreciated and treasured, knowing how it became what it is. As you journey through these pages and your sharp edges become softer, you will begin to discover your true identity and how the Creator made you. And the sea glass, what happened to her? You will see how he took her broken pieces and made her whole again. Our stories are always being written. The end of chapter 3, and the final of the sea glass parable is in chapter 12, and I would love for you to get the book and read it. And I would also like to go ahead and go through the study guide of chapter 3 so you can have some and thank you guys, thank you for your really sweet words. And I'm going to read through the study guide so you can kind of have a glimpse of what the study guide is like. So I'm going to do the prayer. God, Creator and Artist, thank you. Reveal how you created us intricately in your image to contain the very presence of your love for us. As we see ourselves through this parable, fill us with a peace beyond all understanding and begin to reveal your extravagant love for us, even in the broken places. Amen. And now I'm going to do the overview. I love parables. I love how Jesus uses them in the Bible and how they take us into another place in our hearts and minds to connect directly to our own souls. Parables take us out of our own stories and help us see in a completely different way. When God showed me the parable of the sea glass, it showed me a new way of seeing how he created me and saw me. So question number 1 is what was, and this is about your past. Shattered into thousands of pieces, she knew she would never be the same again. When she said, "I will never trust anyone again," that is considered an inner vow. She made a few other vows in the story as well. Sometimes we make vows thinking they will protect us, but in the long run, they end up hurting us. So something that I desire for you to journal in the first part of this study guide would be write down some inner vows you have made and the reasons behind them. Throughout this book, you may begin to discover more vows you've made, good and bad. Continue to write them down and ask God to show you more so you can begin to heal through your discovery. In question number 2, the what is, which is your current situation. You were specifically created and intricately designed with a purpose. So what I would have and desire for you to journal in this one would be close your eyes. And if you want to do this right now, it would be awesome. Close your eyes and take a moment to picture yourself as the jar. In detail, describe how you see yourself today. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. And then number 3. Number 3 is the what is to come. And this is always God's promise and what he has for you. And every part of the study guide will always end with God's promise because it is his fruits. It's the love and the joy and the peace and the patience that he has filled us with his spirit. And when we get to experience that, no matter what hell we've walked through, no matter the shattered pieces and the rough edges and the hurt, there is always his promise. So number 3, the scriptures the Creator spoke to his creation are promises to you. And there were about 3 of those promises within all of the parable. So read Psalms 139:14, John 10:10, Romans 8:28, Matthew 6:34. And then 1 Peter 5:10. So there were 5 of them. So write down the verse or verses you connect with the most and describe why. So I am so excited about this book. I'm so excited to get to be a part of people's lives, to be able to for them to discover in the shattered places and the sharp places, for them through the journal prompts, for you through the journal prompts, to write your cherished story, to get it out to where it is no longer in the darkness. It is no longer trapped and the vows are devouring you, but where it's brought to the light, where the Creator gets to say, this is my daughter, this is my son, this is my cherished one that I love and adore. And so I will probably be reading a few other chapters. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're crying with me, Angela. Thank you. I will probably be reading some other chapters. If you guys have any favorite chapters that you would like me to read, you can email me at polly@pollywright.com. And you can connect with me on Facebook at Polly Wright. I have a Polly Wright author page, and then just you can friend me at Polly Wright. I'm also on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at PollyNay, and that's N as in Nancy, A-Y, PollyNay. And thank you guys for coming on, and please share this. And if you would like to buy the book or books, you can go to pollywright.com/store. And if you're interested in having me come and speak at your church or your small group or anything like that, I would love to do that. I'm traveling all over doing that, and it is one of my favorite things to get to connect with people, because I love seeing the hearts of God's daughters and sons, and you can connect with me through there too. So thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome, and I love you, Karen. Thank you. Thank y'all. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Yep. And